Hey everyone, my name is Marcus. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm a coach, a medium, and a channeler, and I've explored the world of spirit for more than 20 years. In this video, I'm going to talk about the different types of spirit guides we can, if we want, connect to, and why we would perhaps want to connect with them. I'm going to share this from my perspective and kind of like how I started doing this. And so I thank you for being here, and I hope this video is useful for you. So why would you want to connect with your spirit guides? Well, from my experience, they are here to empower us, to have us connect deeper and more strongly with our own soul, with our higher self, if you will. And I've also experienced their protection. So I would say empower us and to protect us is their main job. Because, there's divine jobs on the other side, and some of these have very specific missions and jobs, if you will, in relation to us and our path. And the result of this, for me personally, have been expansion, from going to where I was to where I'm now. It's quite the journey, and I feel more aligned, I feel more expanded, I feel more safe, I feel more love. It's just purely positive, all the effects that I've been experiencing from having connection and communication with my guides. They are not in charge of our lives. They are not better than us, and we can choose to listen or not. They are just here to support us, and ultimately it's us, our soul, that make the decision of doing something. And it's not that we're here to just do our guide's bidding. And we should always check in how a message or how guidance makes us feel. If it makes you feel at ease and inspired to do something, by all means try it out. If it makes you feel not so good, then maybe contemplate it a bit and meditate on that and see what's actually going on here. So with that being said, let me go into all the different types of guides that I've experienced and communicated with and have had experiences with. So the first one, everyone has this type of guide, which is our guardian angel. We all have a guardian angel, and sometimes we can have more than one depending on the situation. But the most common way is that we have one guardian angel, and their main job is to protect us. We have an intention before we incarnate in this life to, at least most of us, to start, and then we have kind of like an exit point, i.e. death. And the guardian angel's job is to make sure that that intention gets fulfilled. So if we were ever in danger, that's when our guardian angel steps in. And so that is because that guide has been with us all the time. It's hard, sometimes harder if they're closer to us, to feel them, because we've always felt them and we don't know how it feels to not feel them. So our guardian angels are always with us. They've been with us every single moment, which I think is insane and awesome at the same time. They have seen all the craziness that is going on in our minds. They've seen all the stupid stuff we've been doing, and they're still here loving us unconditionally, and unconditionally are protecting us. So that is the first guide, and kind of like a main guide as well. Then we have the spirit guides, and that can mean different things. When I talk about spirit guides, it's our guides that we have a kind of like a contract with before incarnating. So our soul has already agreed and said, yes, you are allowed to guide me, and you're allowed to kind of give me divine intervention when I need to. We've already, with our free will up there, said, yes, I want to work with you guys in this life. And from my experience, at least we have a couple, sometimes many spirit guides. And one spirit guide is usually correlated with one type of lesson. So one spirit guide might, help us understand unconditional love. Another guide might be for forgiveness. Another guide might be discipline or things like that. And, so they have very specific things that we want to work on. And then once we've kind of learned that lesson, whatever it might be, then they can leave, and then we'll get another guide with a new lesson. And so when we expand and learn and grow on the spiritual path, we might experience changes in our energy field. And that's quite normal. In fact, it's quite exciting when there's transition of guides. And sometimes we can experience that and have a guide, saying, thank you, you learned this lesson, well done. And we have a new guide. And always the introduction of a new guide is very special and very sacred moments when there's a non-physical, loving entity coming and presenting itself with the intention, because then you'll feel that intention and that love as well. So spirit guides can be spirit animals. From my experience, the spirit guides, they kind of show themselves as animals. And that also gives a clue on their message. So for example, an eagle, if you have the sense that you have an eagle with you, it might be like focusing on seeing the bigger perspective on things. There's many different animals, and they have very unique. It could be correlated to their kind of like the animal and traditional medicine they bring to the world, but it can also be different. Funnily enough, when I started taking cold showers, I got into the whole Wim Hof thing with breathing in cold showers. Then a couple months later, I felt this polar bear in my field, and it was really awesome. And I connected with this guide for a long time, and it wasn't until I was talking with someone I trust deeply, and she was just like, well, when did that, like, she asked me, like, when did this happen? I was just like, oh my God, I just realized I'm starting to take cold showers, and then I have a polar bear guide. So I don't think that just the polar bear is here to helping me remain calm and centered in my cold showers, but to help me with, I don't know, things related to water and mental practice. So there are many layers, connecting with our spirit guides. And our guardian angels, just to, step back to that in a second, they can also, from my experience, take on an animal appearance. I have one experience with a guardian angel that sometimes adjusts her energy depending on what I'm doing. If I'm sitting and meditating, the energy will be more angelic and very bright and loving and peaceful. If I'm walking on the tubes of London, it shows itself as a more of an animal with a more primal energy to help me kind of just like, move through the craziness of the modern world. So then that might sometimes create confusion. Well, is it an animal? Is it an angel? Like, I don't know, it's confusing. If you're asking, is it this or that? The answer is almost always, in my experience, yes, both. They're definitely both. And it's just depending on what kind of energy they're bringing to the table right there and then. And so we can have spirit guides, they can come as animals, and they can also be loved ones that we have interacted with in this life. They kind of sometimes, if they haven't done that work before, they need to undergo training on the other side to understand and to develop their way of communicating with us. Because I need to tune into their energy and they need to tune their energy to mine. So there's training involved for them as well. So if there's a loved one that has passed, I see this in a lot of my readings. There's a grandfather or a grandmother that has become kind of like their spirit guide. I've seen that quite a lot, so it's quite common. And sometimes our loved ones are very evolved on the other side, even if we think they've lived just like a normal life. But they have this deeper understanding of very specific things. So that's spirit guides, guardian angels and spirit guides. Next up is archangels. Now, these souls we don't necessarily, at least from my experience, have contracts with when we're going in. We might, and that might be like an exception, but normally we only have contracts with our guardian angel and our spirit guides. And then if we have more specific things there, then there might be contracts in that as well. But if I want to connect with, let's say, Archangel Michael, who is the divine protector, right? He's an archangel, so he's not like associated or not like necessarily attached to my energetic field unless I invite him. Because in this world, free will is a law, like, and all spirit guides need to, and also the dark side, need to respect our free will. It's impossible for them not to. So, whilst we're on that subject, our spirit guides and guides, like, sometimes there's a fear, well, what about the dark side? The only thing that I've learned about that is how to say no. Because if we say no and we stand in that truth, they have to respect our will and they have no power. And that's the same for these bigger energies like archangels and ascended masters, which we'll get to in a second. We have to invite them for them to, draw close to us. And I was reading this book about archangels and I just felt an instant connection to this name, Archangel Michael. And yeah, it was awesome. He's very much here to connect with us. He wants to connect with us. That's why he's here. He's here to protect light workers who are here to bringing the light to our beautiful planet. And once we've connected them, then we can form a stronger bond with them. So that's archangels. We have Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Sandalphon, Raphael. There's so many archangels. Haniel is one of my, she's awesome. And there are many male and female and androgynous. Some cultures interpret the same angel as male and some as female. I would say, like, just in general, the angelic realm is very balanced and embody both masculine and feminine. The same way I connect with archangels and, the fact that we kind of need to invite them, the same goes for kind of like the ascended masters. Again, there might be contracts with these, but they're less common than, let's say, our spirit guides, which everyone definitely has. But with ascended masters, it's the same, and we can connect more with them by simply saying their name. And so the ascended masters are, we have Jesus, we have Mary, we have Buddha, we have Kuan Yin, we have Muhammad the Prophet, we have many different ascended masters. They are masters that have lived on planet Earth and have now ascended. And they are kind of saying, like, now we're helping from the other side, ascended masters. The archangels are non-physical and, there's some exceptions, but mainly they have not incarnated. So they are up there connecting with us here. They don't necessarily, manifest in an incarnation here. Again, there are exceptions for this. But so the ascended masters can sometimes be a bit easier to relate to because they have walked the human path and they have, gone through some of these lessons. The greatest example I can think of is Master Jesus, Jeshua, who has walked on this earth and have undergone lessons. And so we can connect with him and help him understand our humanity. And my experience is that he's a very wise and loving guide to help us with this human life that we are living. These guides like Jesus and Buddha, they have very broad kind of messages and lessons. And sometimes there are ascended masters that have very specific things. There's Paul the Venetian, who's like an artist. So if you're a painter or you're a poet, you might connect with these guides as well. Another type of guides we can connect with are the ETs, the extraterrestrials, the extra-dimensionals, and depending on the race, they can be either completely non-physical, like the Arcturians, or they can be physical, like the grace, for example. And these type of guides needs discernment, because some of them are kind of just like us. They are, physical, living on a planet, and they have usually a very specific reason for connecting with us. So with this, I would say, like, kind of do your homework and check what you're connecting to and why you're connecting to them. But a safe, I would say, my favorite connection with spirit has been with the Arcturians. They are, I would say, extra dimensional, and they are allegedly from the star Arcturus, and they are very closely related and feel very similar to the angelic realm, because they are non-physical. They haven't incarnated, again, with some exceptions, but they're mainly non-physical, and they're here to work with healing, expansion of this beautiful planet and our consciousness. Very similar to the archangels. So sometimes their energies are very closely related, and I've heard that some people, I'm not gonna say make the mistake of feeling them the same, because in a sense they are, so it's not a mistake, but thinking that they are the same, and like I said, from one perspective they can be, and they might be. So we have the Arcturians, we have the Pleiadians, we have the Greys. I feel like there's a lot of new information coming about the Greys right now, which I feel like is part of this, shift we're all going through right now. And yeah, we have Lyrans. Like there are many different ETs. I'm not going to go through all of them, but definitely to do your homework if this is something you're interested in. Another type of energy we connect to is the dragon energy. According to author Diana Cooper, we all have a guardian dragon as well as a guardian angel. And the dragon energy is mighty and powerful. And yeah, it kind of brings me to another type of guides, or maybe not so much guides, but there's spirits here on planet Earth as well, called elementals. I think that's where all the stories of the fairies, etc., come from. And so in nature, in our garden, we could maybe have some of these elementals, and we can connect with them as well. And they can help us get closer to planet Earth and to connect more with nature. And a little kind of like bonus guide is, our pets, our physical human, not human pets, but we're human, we're having pets, cats, dogs, and just watching them walk around and just do their thing can sometimes be a very strong meditation. I have the neighbor's cat coming and visiting every now and then, and I'm just so amazed on like how graceful and how calm and how in the moment this beautiful being just embodies that. So it can be a deep meditation just to watch them and to tune into their energy, because I truly believe that they are here to help us and teach us. I don't think we are wiser than them. We have a stronger mind and have a stronger ego, and we might know algebra, but their soul wisdom is very embodied, so they can be great teachers as well. Those are kind of like the different guides that I've had the pleasure of connecting with. And now I'm going to share how I got started in actually connecting with them myself. And worth mentioning is that I had a connection with my grandmother who was on the other side when I was very little. I don't have many memories from this, but my mom has told me like how I would communicate with her and how I would, talk about her. And we would always say that she was my guardian angel and that she was helping me. I was a very crazy kid. I was always getting myself injured and getting myself into trouble. So we would always say that she's here helping me, picking me up, and being a guardian angel of sorts. So I'm mentioning that because I think many of us have experiences like that we might not remember. So you might have that as well. And what it did for me was kind of giving me a template and kind of like a resonance, an emotional memory of how it feels to connect with spirit. And I feel like that's very much, they say that the first 5 years or so are super crucial in developing safety in our own body and stuff like that. So I feel like it was very helpful and, divine planning with that, because now when I'm connecting to spirit and spirit guides, it feels good and safe because I know what I'm doing, because I've essentially been doing it my whole life. And that was my first introduction to it. But that was forgotten about, and I didn't even think about that, until very recently. But when I started meditating, that's when these things started to happen. Because I only had an intention of meditation. I didn't have any intention of like, oh, I want to connect with my spirit guides. I didn't have that. I didn't even know at that time, spirit guides was a thing. We talked about my grandmother as a guardian angel when I was younger, but, not with that perspective. And so when I started meditating, I was just curious, what would happen if I sit down and close my eyes for 20 minutes in silence? That was my way into meditation. And I kind of just explored, what would happen? And the first thing that I started to practice and learn was how to understand my physical sensations, and then later interpreting them as messages and guidance. I might have loving messages from my heart. I was able to understand the difference of how my thoughts feel versus how my heart felt. And I might have a gut feeling of something, or like our different body parts can, help us move through this life with more grace. And sometimes just tuning into them, they can have very powerful messages. So I started to understand where different insights were coming from. The heart is, of course, a very powerful space. And our mind is not entirely negative. Like if we've been having a crazy day, our monkey mind might be chattering a bit too loud. But once we feel the connection, our brain is an interface to translate the emotions we might feel. I might have a very strong emotion, but I might not necessarily know what that is because I haven't experienced it before. Bringing it up in my mind can then help translate that emotion so I can understand it, communicate it, and apply it into my life. So that's where our brain and our mind is very useful. And I feel like that is the purpose. It's the 3D interface of, translating all of these energies of our soul, which is higher dimensional, into 3D physical reality. It's just that the mistake is that we've let it run the show, which is not its purpose. And then it freaks out and goes into fear mode because it needs to make sure that we don't get hurt. So that's a side note about the mind. But I would then eventually feel like, okay, I have a pretty good but I have a good sense of my body. And then months, I don't know how long, passed. Then eventually I would start getting messages and I would feel, I understand the message. It feels good, but it feels like it's coming outside of me. And that was quite interesting. It just felt like it was in my energy field rather than in my body. And then I explored that and, I was journaling. I would always make sure I write down all of the things that I'm receiving to kind of later contemplate and dissect if I wanted to. But I remember the first time I actually understood, I was like, oh, there's other beings, entities here. And I would sit and meditate and my head would move and then they would stop and I would get this kind of like a gentle wave of energy. And I would also get a knowing like, oh, this energy feels maybe masculine, maybe feels like an old person, feels like a very wise person. And then my head would move again to another position. That felt like maybe a young female, very wise as well, but more playful energy. Then another might feel this or that. And then I would have these positions where I would feel these energies. And that's what I later understood. It's like, okay, so those are my spirit guides. And that's still how I communicate and feel them and connect with them now. They have different positions where they're coming in. So if I feel energy coming in right here, it's that guide or those guides. If the energy is from there, I know who they are, and they don't have names. Like, I don't hear them speaking English. It's an energy frequency, energy signature that they come with, that they introduce themselves with. And we have this capacity in our heart. There we don't listen with our mind. There we feel and receive with our hearts. And I think we all know this. We have this skill. It's just that we haven't been encouraged to use that. And I feel like that's one of the things that are coming more online now for people right now. It's this heart space and our soul coming more online, because it's well needed. So that's how I started communicating with them. And very important for me was to write down the insights I'm getting, because that's also a way of me saying, thank you. Yes, I hear you. And then what I do with that is up to me. Like I said, they're not here to control our lives, but here to empower us. So some challenges with this might be that sometimes people just like, well, I'm getting something, but am I just making that up? Like, isn't that just me thinking? And could be, but it could also not be. I would encourage you to feel how that feels. Does it feel like you're making it up in your mind? Or does it feel like, if you're getting a message and you're like, if you feel not baffled, but like a bit surprised, a good chance is that it's not coming from you, because usually our thoughts are not that inspiring and that surprising to us. But if we receive something and it makes us, a bit like contemplative, that's usually an indication of like, there's information coming in here. So that's one indication. Another indication is if your ego or mind tells you to do something, there's usually an urgency. It's usually like, I have to do this now. Like, hurry up, otherwise something bad's gonna happen. That's my ego. That's my mind. Never have I received a message from a guide that gives me that feeling. The divine guidance I receive makes me feel peaceful, makes me feel love, makes me feel like everything's gonna be okay, And it might be tough love sometimes, and that might be challenging, but it's always with love, unconditional love, and there's never any judgment. So that's kind of how you can check, well, am I just making this up? Or, Another challenge might be if you are afraid of the other side, be gentle with yourself. Don't push. There's no rush. There's no need to push it. You don't have to do this. There's no pressure. If it feels scary, back off. And then you can say if you still have a very deep motivation to connect with them, then you can say, okay, I want to, but I'm a bit hesitant. Can you please give me gentle messages? Can you please take it very slowly? You can instruct them to adjust their energy. No, that's too much, or no, I want more. You can have them do that. And they're very much open for you to communicate with them in this way. And also they can send messages in your physical reality. They can send you 1111. They can send you a song on the radio. They can send you a person in the supermarket that just looks at you in a specific way. So they can communicate with you in this way as well. It doesn't have to be telepathy during meditation. That's just one way, which happens to be my favorite, which is why I'm talking a lot about it in this video. And also, last tip is, if you're feeling a bit hesitant, unsure, unsafe, call in the Divine Protector, Archangel Michael, who is here to help us feel safe and loved and protected at all times. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you today's coaching question, which is related to our spirit guides. A lot of people have already a strong connection with with their spirit guides, but they don't know of it. So if you would describe your guide, how would you describe them? Imagine yourself having a guide. How would you describe them? What qualities would they have? Chances are those are the qualities of your actual spirit guides that you're actually already communicating with. So with that being said, I'm gonna end this video. During my calls as a medium, I connect with your spirit guides. That's what I do in a mediumship reading. I get messages from your guides and I convey them to you. If that sounds interesting to you, you can book a one-to-one session with me. You can go to my website. If you're curious on how I work as a medium, you can check out the video that I'm linking here, where I go into detail on how I work and the purpose of why I'm doing it and the kind of the goal I'm trying to achieve. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, everything you're seeking is within. Peace.